The segment that I wanted to cover, and I don't really have an actual theme with this other than just Trump's trial in general. We actually haven't talked about it on the show, John and I, with any of our guests or anything, because honestly, out of Trump's 4 cases, this is the one we care the least about. And it's really, I mean, it's one of those weird things too, that letter of the law, he did break the law. He absolutely did. There's no way around it. And his lawyer went to jail for it, and his lawyer's fessing up for everything. But God, when it's lined up against the mountain of shit that Trump did, you can barely see this thing. And what I've been fascinated by, I've just been captivated, is just the essence and the steps of the trial itself. Because Trump gets there, and every time he would go out and talk about it, do you guys notice this? He would always bitch about how cold the courtroom was. Have you guys seen this? Well, every time, which is real. I don't know why he keeps doing it. Because it makes him seem like he's weak. Like, why do you keep complaining? And he refers to it as the ice box. And then him shitting on the judge, which I've never been a defendant in a court of law, but I'm pretty sure the last thing you want to do is publicly shit on the judge presiding over your case. And he was found in contempt of court 10 times by this judge. And then last week or the week before, the judge told Trump and his legal team, I think he dismissed everybody from the court to talk to Trump's counsel, and said, listen, your client has been in contempt of court 10 times. He's been fining him a couple grand each time. Trump doesn't care. He's got the money, and well, for now at least. And he doesn't care. And so he's like, okay, look, the next time Donald Trump goes out and breaks this gag order, I am putting his ass in jail. It's going to happen. And so Trump did something, look, genius, got to say, it is genius that instead of going out there and shitting on the judge, he brings up news articles from Fox News. And according to Bill Hemmer, this judge is a rank amateur, which is very funny that he found a way to sneak around the order. But we'll go to Carrie first. What's been your thoughts on this this grand example of our legal system before our eyes these past few weeks?
It's just been a shit show, right? So speaking of those 10 times that he was found in contempt. So the swingers down at the Villages, the Villages in Florida, the old people that swing, they paid the fines. Did you know that?
What?
Yes. Yes, the swingers and I don't know if the exact people, but that community, the Villager, they had a little fundraiser and they paid for those fines. That's just crazy. I
how much of a sycophant must you be? I can't imagine how miserable I must be to pay someone I think is a billionaire's legal fees. Come on.
We need a word for someone who has $200 million and more. That's in the same category to me. I'm sorry. It's just, I'm sorry, Carrie, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then I think it was Lieutenant Dan Patrick who was there just a few days ago. And he was talking about how it's the ruling class and how they're coming out together. It's like, bitch, he shits on a golden toilet and flies around the country on a plane. He is the ruling class. What is happening here? It's just, yeah, it is crazy to me. I don't have high hopes that there's going to be I think it'll end up being a mistrial, hung jury, but man, it would be nice for him to get a guilty plea.
Narrator, I thought the same thing.
Lieutenant Dan.
Lieutenant Dan.
Lieutenant Dan, that's funny. Yeah, I saw that clip with Dan Patrick, and he actually, because the reporter asked, it was he was railing against the ruling class, has it out for Donald Trump, and this reporter is yelling, "Hey, isn't Donald Trump part of the ruling class?" The man said no. He said no. Donald Trump is not part of the ruling class. The guy who was our ruler 3.5 years ago, not part of the ruling class. He is in it for the common people. It's God damn, how good. I don't understand it. I don't get it at all. And as far as I didn't hear about the Villagers, that is very funny though, because it's embarrassing, but I can't think of a better group of people to rip off than old rich bigots. Go for it. If you can scam them, there couldn't happen to a better group of people.
Exactly.
So we've kind of touched on 2 points here, which I think kind of arrive at the same conclusion, is that this isn't a real trial in the sense that the victory condition isn't a not guilty verdict for Donald Trump. Like, Donald Trump probably wants to win the trial because he just wants to win everything he does because he's an egomaniac, but like, he doesn't need to. He doesn't. This trial isn't going to stop him from being president. It's not going to like put him in jail for any significant amount of time. Even if it does, it's probably just going to be house arrest and whatever. Like, it's not going to impact him that much. Yeah, any other defendant wouldn't want to insult the judge presiding over their trial, but for him, he has to, because if he loses, then his political goal is to attack everyone and say it was a political attack, it was a witch hunt, it was X, Y, and Z. They're coming after me. They're using the state to come after me. It's the ruling class versus us common people. And obviously, we're all laughing. He's not these common people. But if you look at far right rhetoric, they often steal the language of progressivism in order to convince the working class masses that they're the good guys. Don't listen to those damn commies. They don't have the working class at heart. It's us, the Donald Trumps of the world, who shit on golden toilets and have had multiple fucking lawsuits lost about not giving black people their fucking wages. like that's the guy. That's the guy that we want taking care of us. And this trial in a nutshell is very, very much demonstrating those two things. I think it's going to be very clear. I don't think it matters whether he wins or loses. I know that the article that you sent, TJ, said that 1/4 of Republicans said they won't vote for him if he's convicted of a crime. Fucking bullshit. Like, liberals, I would believe. Like, liberals would be like, yeah, no, if Biden was convicted of a crime, liberals would line up to vote for Donald Trump. But maybe not vote, but they wouldn't vote at all, at least. But but I don't think that the Republicans have that fucking conviction inside them.
I'll come back to that after Carrie talks. I'll come back to that.
Well, there was just one thing that I did find super interesting, and nobody is talking about it. Nobody is talking about it. So the details came out, and he could have been charged with a crime at that time about this too. So he paid $50,000 to a computer guy, a contractor, to rig polls in 2015. It was a CNBC poll. He didn't like the numbers, and he did the same thing. He said, "Okay, I'll pay you, $50K." The guy went out, and I think he went and obtained a bunch of IP addresses that they were going to use to manipulate the CNBC poll. And the guy, Trump, ended up stiffing him. Y'all, he didn't like the polls back then. And he was, and so, like, to me, I'm just like, why is nobody talking about the glaring the fact that we are inundated with polls? The polls are just freaking flooding the zone. That we're being flooded with these polls. They are anywhere between 8 to 15% off. They're all wrong. They don't predict shit, but they make someone look good. And here we have verified documentation that he paid people to influence polls. Like, that was the only thing that I thought was really interesting, that I feel like we should investigate that a little bit more.
I hadn't heard that. And I hadn't heard that, but this is something I've been saying for a long time about polls. I've actually been saying it for a while. I used to make fun of people years ago because Republicans would always do this. Like in 2000, 2004, like, oh, don't believe the polls, don't believe the polls. The polls were fairly accurate. Like, the polls, like, pretty much got it every time. These last couple elections, no, awful. Just and awful in the Republicans' favor. Like, the Republicans always did way better. Because when John and I talk about it, we always mention what you said, Carrie, that over the last two elections, the Democrats have overperformed by like 8 to 9 points in these last two elections. But another way to say it is that Republicans have underperformed for the actual elections, which is what I'm going to start saying from now on. And I think the Trump effect plays a lot into this, in that most people aren't picking up their phones to answer random numbers to, say, yeah, God, I cannot wait to vote for Joe Biden. That is a very small percent of the population. Now, it's an even smaller percent for Trump, but they will do it. Like, they love broadcasting how much they love voting for Trump. And I hadn't heard about. You said he was paying. Well, it was
one promised contractor. Yeah, it was $50,000, and it was kind of the same deal where Michael Cohen, he was supposed to get paid with a cashier's check. The guy showed up to his office and then he tried to stiff him somehow. So and it was right around the same time. And they actually had testimony of that just this last week. And he was paid to buy these IP addresses so they could use those to alter the results of the CNBC poll.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that, but maybe a reason we haven't because CNBC is like a major network and they're kind of embarrassed by that. Like, I don't know, because that might be it. I don't know, but I had
because Fox News would run with it if it wasn't incriminating Donald Trump, and MSNBC ain't going to talk about it because it makes them look bad. I guess CNN, but CNN.
But I don't even think it's just like nobody talks about it, which is just crazy to me because we all know that this man is obsessed with image. We all know that he creates this fake world around him. Like he is obsessed with ratings. He is obsessed with election results. He will hire fake union workers to portray the image that he is a union guy. He hires people to come to his rallies. We have actual evidence where he paid someone in 2015 to alter polls. And we have 2 election cycles worth of polls that are so far off that they don't do anything but pad his ego. And I'm just saying, if I was a person, like a data person, I would be like, something's going on here, which is why I think, I'll just say it. I don't think that the Biden campaign truly is worried about these polls because they have their own internal polling.
This is John and I listen. It's eerie how similar what you're saying is to what we say.
Yeah.
Because I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I think the election is. I would bet everything I own the Democrats are going to win the House. The Senate is a little tighter because the Democrats are defending 20 seats and Republicans are only defending like 10. So like the Republicans have the home court advantage there. But either way, the Senate's going to be, someone will have 52 votes, someone will have 48. It'll be pretty close. And knowing everything about what we said about the polls and about the push for Roe v. Wade and everything, I think Biden, I would bet Biden would win. Like if I had to choose, like I still think it's Biden, even though the polls don't say that. So people think it's weird. And, there's the whole thing, like people aren't excited for Biden. He's going to lose some support for the whole Gaza thing. But more people, like most of your normies are still going to kind of, be, for Democrats in general, if not necessarily for Biden. So I agree. I think the same thing. And the polls are reflecting a reality that I don't think is that's not to say I don't think Biden should be worried. I don't think he should just ignore everything. I think that's a bad move.
You should always be worried. Yeah.
That's where I stand, Carrie. I am more pro poll than I think either of you are. But I also I would stake my house that I don't know that Biden's going to win in November and the Democrats are probably going to do quite well. But it's not because of either Biden or Trump. It's mostly Roe v. Wade. Like that's I would say that like everyone's mind is made up and it's just about get out the vote. And the thing that's going to get out the vote the most this election cycle is going to be abortion rights, and Republicans are going to get their ass about it.
Yeah,
but I'm more concerned. I'm going to throw you. I want to finish this. I'm less concerned about the polls. Way more concerned that Biden seems to not be concerned about the polls. That concerns me significantly.
I'm not. And the reason why I'm not, y'all, is because there's other factors that you look at besides the polls, right? So we all know that for the last few election cycles that the Republicans have been flooding with BS polls. We know that. That's not to say that polling data can't be useful, but these people, the campaigns, they have their own polling people. They have their own internal polling data. They are doing their own polls. And you have to look at other factors. So some things that we don't ever talk about, the fact that Donald Trump has lost 25% of his individual donors, 25%. Meanwhile, the Biden campaign has picked up more individual donors than any other campaign in history. So you have to look at, okay, well, if more people are willing to put their money, their hard-earned money in this economy, right, behind a campaign, and there's more grassroots donation, that counts to me. That's more than a poll of 900 people who happen to answer a phone from an unknown number. Like if you're putting your money where you're like, that to me is a huge deal. And I feel like we should we should like relish in that and not all the time doom and gloom. Like I'm so sick of the doom and gloom on the polls that's what they do.
We did an episode, or at least a part of the episode, about this very thing a couple of months ago, and I pulled up the numbers from I think 3 states. It was Arizona, Michigan, Minnesota, and I think Maryland, and it showed not only like the cash on hand for the state Republican parties, like the state of Michigan, I think had $53. Like the state of Republican party for Michigan had $53. And the RNC is hemorrhaging cash, and they're going to hemorrhage more because Donald Trump's fucking daughter-in-law is the chair, and so all the money is going to his campaigns. And Charlie Kirk, of all people, like a month or 2 ago, did a video. I don't know if you guys saw it, where he talked about how many like offices the Biden campaign has set up compared to Trump. Biden is up like 10 times as many offices. So yeah, like, looking at the bird's eye view of it, it's if you didn't know anything about what was going on, you'd be like, okay, this side is definitely doing better than the other. It's just I think that people are. This is also this episode's kind of long, but one of the here, is that people were so traumatized by 2016. Like no one was prepared for that Donald Trump could actually win, and did. People got out of bed and voted for him. That I understand the apprehension, and that people should keep that. And so, because I don't know about you, Carrie, whenever I say stuff like that, I get a lot of comments like, don't be saying stuff like this. Don't be depressing. I was like, first off, who do you think I am? Like, people are going to vote because I'm going to give them a review on that. But I'm just saying how it is. And I understand that's a big part of it too. Because like John, you said that you don't think it'd be Biden or Trump. I think it will be Trump because people can't wait to vote against Trump. And that's going to be, if anything in society, there's going to be the anti-Trump vote.
I'm more meant, it's not because anything they are going to do between now
gotcha.
and November. Yeah. The one thing I want to say is we talked a lot when the Republican debates first started, how we started a whole episode about Ron DeSantis. And then halfway through, we realized we were talking about Trump the entire time. And we were like, you know what? This is exactly why Ron DeSantis doesn't stand a chance, because this segment was titled about Ron DeSantis, and we spent most of the time talking about Donald Trump. And I just want to acknowledge that this was a segment about Trump that we just spent half the time talking about Joe Biden. And not in a bad way.
So
not talking about Joe Biden like you like to do.
If you ever have me on your show, I will do that. Like, I'm big into you have to flip the script a little bit. I feel like there's a fine line. I agree with you wholeheartedly. We cannot take anything for granted. And personally, if people want to think and believe these polls, I think it's good because it keeps people engaged. It keeps them motivated. It's like, hey, we're going to get out and we're going to be involved. But truthfully, I think there is a huge underestimation. I can't even say the word of the ground game that the Democrats have. I mean, like, if you look at what happened in Maryland with Angela, with that race, the Senate race that just happened, if you look at the last races that have happened in Wisconsin and what those state parties have able to do, Wisconsin did not leave one door unknocked during that Supreme Court race. Like, that party went out. Like, they have amassed a really impressive ground game that people don't talk about. And that's why you're seeing the difference in the results on the elections.